Inspiring heroic housekeeper saves a millionaire's son from a fatal accident called her MOM. In the sun-drenched suburbs of Atlanta, where the manicured lawns stretched like colored carpets, Rosa worked tirelessly as a housekeeper. With 3 kids to nurture and a husband fighting in a war far away, she was no stranger to hard work. Her days began before dawn, dusting and scrubbing with a relentless spirit. Though her hands ached and her heart was heavy with worry, she wore a smile that lit up her face, refusing to let the weight of the world dim her heart. Rosa taught her children the values of integrity and perseverance. "Keep pushing, mi amor," she would say. "Our strength is in our love." This particular afternoon found her in the extravagant home of Mr. Davidson, a businessman known for his wealth but not for his warmth. As Rosa dusted the gleaming surfaces and mopped the tiled floors, the roar of a sports car engine shattered her routine. Curiosity piqued. She glanced out the window, her heart suddenly lodged in her throat. There was Jake, Mr. Davidson's son, a teen with a penchant for speed, revving the engine as though dared by the very thrill of life itself. Blind to the peril lying ahead, fear gripped Rosa's heart. Every mother's instinct screamed to protect. She sprinted out the door, fueled by desperation. "Jake, stop!" she shouted, terror propelling her toward him. The screech of tires drowned her voice, but her body moved with resolve. Just as she positioned herself in front of the car, the world seemed to freeze. With a jarring halt, the car skidded to a stop inches from her. The stunned silence that followed was thick with disbelief. Breathless and shaking, Rosa stepped back, aware of the gazes now piercing her like daggers. Mr. Davidson emerged, his brows knitted together, questions swimming behind his narrowed eyes. "What were you thinking?" he demanded, voice dripping with disdain. The air crackled with tension as the family perceived her actions through a filter of prejudice, seeing only the help in the woman before them. Rosa felt indignation swell in her chest, the fire of injustice igniting as she held her ground. Later at home, she picked up her phone, seeking solace with her mother. "Mama, it was like they saw me as invisible," Rosa cried. Her mother's voice bubbled through, reminding her of their roots. Their shared family story spoke of resilience against the odds. "You're more than what they see, Mija," her mother would say, each word wrapping around Rosa like a warm blanket. The stirring events rippled through the community, sparking conversations among neighbors. "Did you hear about Rosa?" they murmured. The bravery of a housekeeper challenged the boundaries of wealth and privilege. Yet, just as hope began to rise, the storm of conflicts brewed behind the scenes, threatening to unravel everything that as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Rosa stood at a crossroads, contemplating the courage that pulsed in her veins. Would her integrity be enough to bridge the chasm between her world and Jake's? A painful connection seemed inevitable, one that could tear at the fabric of her very existence. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Caught in a web of social expectation and personal conviction, Rosa felt her heart pound against her ribcage, a wild rhythm of hope and fear. The potential for understanding so tantalizingly close hung delicately in the air. As shadows deepened and whispers grew louder, Rosa steeled herself for the confrontation ahead, knowing that the choice between family and responsibility would ripple beyond her own heart, shaping the lives of many. Would she step forward into the light, even if it meant facing the darkest corners of their worlds? Rosa woke before dawn again, sunlight barely peeking through her kitchen window. The scent of brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the familiar sounds of her children stirring awake. She forced herself to focus on the daily routine, but thoughts of yesterday's events weighed heavily on her mind. The icy stare of Mr. Davidson lingered, haunting her like a shadow. Would it always be this way? As she prepared breakfast, her youngest, Mateo, stared up at her with sleepy eyes. "Mama, are you going back to Mr. Davidson's today?" he asked, his small voice trembling with worry. She ruffled his hair, fighting back the urge to voice her own fears. Yes, mi amor. But remember, it's important work. I have to be brave. While they ate, the quiet of their home offered a comforting contrast to the tension that awaited her. She listened to their laughter, the sound creating a shield against the judgmental whispers of the world outside. But as she left for work, her smile faded, replaced by a whirl of emotions. How could she continue to serve a family that saw her as less than human? The Davidson's mansion loomed ahead, an extravagant edifice that seemed to judge her from afar. The moment she walked through the door, the air shifted. Mr. Davidson was on a call, his voice booming and impatient. Jake sat slumped on the couch, scrolling through his phone, shoulder muscles taut. Neither acknowledged her presence. Rosa, tidy the upstairs, Mr. Davidson barked without taking his eyes off the screen. A shiver crawled down her spine, but she nodded, pushing past her discomfort. As she moved through the halls covered in cold marble, her thoughts began to spin out of control. Was any of this worth it? She sighed, dragging a feather duster along the ornate banister, her mind racing back to the tightly held words of her mother, that she was more than just the help. As Rosa made her way to Jake's room, her heart hammered in her chest, an echo of uncertainty. What if today was different? What if she could bridge that social chasm? She gently rapped on the door. It swung open, revealing a cluttered space adorned with posters and discarded clothes. Jake looked up, surprise flitting across his face. Hey, he mumbled, scratching the back of his head, looking every bit the troubled teenager. The weight of what she had done yesterday hung thick between them. Thanks for, stopping me. Rosa took a breath, feeling the burden of their different worlds pressing down. Jake, you need to be careful. Life is precious, and I wouldn't forgive myself if something happened to you. His eyes flickered with an unfamiliar softness. Why do you care? He trailed off, not wanting to adorn the word housekeeper with an explanation. Before she lost her courage, Rosa stepped forward. Because, Jake, I care about people. I pushed through fear to save a life, and it was the right thing to do, no matter who you are. Silence enveloped the room, a thick blanket of unspoken words and revelations. Jake looked at her differently, more curious now than judgmental. I didn't think about it like that. He conceded slowly that it felt like a small victory, but before Rosa could settle into that moment, the door swung open again. Mr. Davidson's voice cut through like a knife. Jake, get over here. We have a meeting. Rosa turned, her heart sinking anew. The brief connection with Jake had felt fragile and fleeting. Yet it was something. See you later? Jake asked, barely above a whisper. Rosa nodded, a tentative smile slipping across her face, a spark igniting a hesitant hope. But as she resumed her cleaning, doubt whispered in her ear. Could this day hold more potential for understanding? Or was it just another mask over the same old prejudices? The clock ticked, each second crunching under the weight of what lay ahead. What would happen when she confronted Mr. Davidson about his attitudes? As evening settled in, a storm of emotions brewed within her. The realization struck. Her choice to bring open dialogue into a world where silence held sway could change everything. Tomorrow would have to be the day of reckoning, one that could alter the paths of many. But would she find the strength to push through, or would fear take the lead? Rosa took a deep breath, gripping the dust cloth tightly. What awaited her was uncertain, but it was necessary. And then she heard Jake's voice echoing in her mind. See you later. That thought lingered as she whispered to herself. What if today was just the beginning? The sun crept through the kitchen window again, casting warm beams across the table where Rosa sat, barely able to touch her coffee. Mateo was whispering excitedly about his plans for a school play, but all Rosa could focus on was the knot in her stomach. Would she really speak up today? Was she ready to confront Mr. Davidson? The thought gripped her like a vice. With each minute that passed, the pressure built. She rehearsed her words, silently, carefully, choosing the ones that might cut through his polished indifference. You need to see me as a person, she practiced in her mind. The words felt heavy, buoyed by fear, yet they burned brightly with hope. Was there a way to reach him? She imagined Jake's softer gaze from yesterday. It made her heart flutter. When she arrived at the mansion, the usual dread surfaced. The grand entrance felt more suffocating today. Just beyond the door, Mr. Davidson's authoritative voice echoed down the hall, cutting through the stillness like a knife. Rosa took a deep breath, steeling herself. She spotted Jake, his shoulders hunched, entering the living room with a troubled look. "Hey," Jake said quietly, his eyes searching hers. "Hi," Rosa replied, her heart racing. There was a moment of unspoken understanding before they both turned toward the source of Mr. Davidson's booming voice. Rosa gulped hard. Today was not just another day, it had to mean something more. "Rosa," Mr. Davidson called sharply, startling her from her thoughts. "I need that laundry done now." As she moved toward the laundry room, uncertainty surged within her. What if he never changed? She crossed the threshold, but instead of moving to the piles of clothes, she spun around, her resolve taking over. "Mr. Davidson," she called out, her voice barely rising above the tension in the air. He turned, annoyance etched on his face. "Can we talk?" His brow furrowed, irritation clear. "I don't have time for chit-chat right now." The fire inside her ignited. "It's not chit-chat. It's important." He raised an eyebrow, his posture shifting slightly, curious but unyielding. "Fine. I'm listening." Rosa inhaled, the weight of her heart pressing against her ribcage. "I saved your son yesterday. But saving him isn't just about the moment. It's about the future, too. He needs guidance, compassion, someone who sees him as more than a Davidson." Mr. Davidson's expression faltered for the briefest second, but he quickly regained his composure, arrogance creeping back into his demeanor. "And who do you think you are to lecture me on parenting?" Rosa's courage shivered at his words. "I'm not lecturing. I'm simply saying every life matters. You treat people as their worth depends on their title, their money. But what if you let that go, even just a little? Imagine how different things could be for Jake, for you." As the words hung in the air, she watched Mr. Davidson's lips tighten. There was a shift, something swirling behind his steely facade. The silence in the room felt charged, as if the walls themselves were listening. She took a step closer, emboldened by a glimmer of hope. "Mr. Davidson, what if you chose to see the people around you for who they are? It could change everything." He stared at her, the battle between his pride and something deeper waging beneath his surface. The seconds felt like hours as a profound clarity flickered across his features, a flash of vulnerability that frightened and excited her all at once. "Rosa," he began, voice lower, contemplative. Before he could finish, Jake appeared, eyes wide, sensing the tension like a charged electric current. "What is going on?" Rosa's heart dropped. She had hoped for a breakthrough, an honest moment between them. Instead, she felt exposed, standing on the precipice of transformation that seemed just out of reach. Would Jake recognize this moment as a chance for change too? "Just a discussion," Mr. Davidson said curtly, masking his hesitation. Jake glanced between them, uncertainty flooding his expression. The air felt thick with unspoken truths, urging a response, but Rosa's courage teetered. "What happens now?" she whispered, her heart beating wildly. As their gaze met, the world seemed to pause, leaving only her question hanging in the air. Would she truly have the chance to open a door toward understanding, or was she about to retreat back into darkness? Yet one truth remained evident: a chasm lay before her, filled with both fear and possibility. What would she choose? The tension danced in the air like an uninvited guest, leaving Rosa vulnerable and exposed. She looked at Jake, his wide eyes filled with a mix of concern and confusion. The moment felt fragile, and yet so heavy, like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. "Rosa, are you okay?" Jake finally asked, breaking the silence. His voice was filled with worry, and for a brief moment, she saw something deeper in him, a shared wish for connection, for change. She clenched her fists, trying to channel her swirling emotions into words that might break the barrier around his father. "I'm okay, but we need to talk about what happened yesterday about you." Jake shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Mr. Davidson, who stood in a defensive posture, arms crossed tightly, face hardening again as his eyes flickered in annoyance. "Now is not the time for this, Jake. Go upstairs," he ordered, his voice as chill as the air around them. "No," Jake protested, stepping closer to Rosa. "I want to hear what she has to say." Rosa felt a sliver of hope pierce through the clouds of doubt. "Jake, it's about your dad," she continued, gesturing toward Mr. Davidson. He needs to understand that you're more than just his surname. You're a person with dreams and feelings. You deserve to be seen." Mr. Davidson scoffed, rolling his eyes. And what do you know about being a parent? You're just the help, he spat, arrogance dripping from every syllable. Rosa felt the sting of his words, but this time it didn't shatter her resolve. I may not have a lot, but I know how important it is to feel valued, she replied, her voice shaking slightly but unwavering. Jake deserves that, and so do you. For a flicker of time, Mr. Davidson seemed caught off guard. He turned slightly, as if contemplating her words. But just as quickly, he snapped back to his usual self. What do you expect me to do? Change overnight? That's ridiculous, he dismissed, his fingers tapping impatiently against his arm that Rosa's heart thundered in her chest. No, but starting with small changes could lead to something bigger. You have the power to build something better for Jake, to break that cycle. Like what? He challenged, his tone sharp. Can you honestly believe a few words from you can change my entire perspective? Maybe not, Rosa admitted, desperation creeping into her voice. But it's worth a try. Acknowledge him. Have conversations, not just commands. Be present. Behind that facade of power, maybe you're afraid of connecting. Just like we all are. Mr. Davidson's expression froze. His nostrils flared as he processed her words. Jake glanced between them, catching the swell of emotion in the air. The house felt like it was holding its breath, and for a moment, it seemed as if the mansion itself had become an unwitting witness to this newfound vulnerability within Mr. Davidson. Dad, you can do better, Jake urged softly, stepping closer to his father. You can try? Please just try. The plea from his son pierced through the layers of Mr. Davidson's pride. What if I don't know how? He said, more quietly now, his eyes searching theirs for answers. Rosa's heart ached at the sight of his struggle. You start with honesty, with listening. It won't be easy, but even the strongest walls can come down if there's a desire to change, she encouraged gently. For one fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of something behind Mr. Davidson's steely facade, a longing for connection, and perhaps the fear of losing what he had been holding onto for so long. And that's when Jake's expression grew brighter, a hopeful smile breaking through the tension. We can figure it out together, he exclaimed, his voice resonating with cautious optimism. But just as Mr. Davidson opened his mouth to respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from the other room, interrupting the charged moment and bringing a wave of uncertainty crashing back in. Mr. Davidson, we need to talk about the project, a crisp voice called out, the door swinging open. Rosa's heart sank. The warmth of their conversation had been snatched away, leaving the air thick with abruptness. Would the chance drift away from them like smoke on the wind? Jake's hopeful gaze slipped back into uncertainty, while Mr. Davidson's guardedness fell right back into place, a mask of indifference shrouding the raw emotion they had just been on the brink of exploring. Rosa felt lost again, the moment of potential change slipping through her fingers. As she turned to leave, she felt something stir within her, a flicker of determination. She needed to find a way to reignite this conversation, to keep the door open. What if the moment to change things hadn't vanished yet? What if she could summon the courage to speak again when it mattered most? But for now, standing on the threshold of what could be, she wondered, how many chances would it take to make them see? Rosa paused in the hallway, the distant murmur of Mr. Davidson's business conversation barely registering in her mind. She leaned against the wall, her heart racing and her thoughts tangled. Was it too late? Could she really make a difference? Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. Rosa? He said softly, stepping out of the shadows. The hopefulness in his expression warmed her, a small beacon in this sea of uncertainty. Are you okay? She nodded, though doubt still clung to her like a heavy cloak. I wanted to talk more. I feel like we were making progress. Jake's brow furrowed. My dad, he can be stubborn. But you're right. He needs to listen. There was a determination in his voice that made her heart swell. Yes, he does, she replied, taking a deep breath. You do too, Jake. You have to stand your ground, even when he pushes back. I try, but it's hard. He doesn't see me. The boy's voice wavered, and Rosa felt the weight of his pain deep within her. Sometimes I think he only sees the business, not me. Rosa stepped closer, compelled to bridge that emotional gap. Then let him see. Show him who you are. The music you love, your dreams, share everything that makes you, you. A flicker of hope sparked in Jake's eyes. You think he'd care? I think he is scared. Rosa was surprised at how easily the truth flowed from her lips. Pain can make people blind, but it can also create clarity. You just need to help him see past his fear. Jake nodded slowly, his determination firming. Okay, I'll try. I wish it was easier. Rosa felt a pang of empathy. Change rarely is, but it's important. You're worth the fight. Just then, the door swung open wider, and Mr. Davidson stepped out, his expression unreadable. Jake, can you not, for once, just be a dad? Jake's voice rang out, startling both Rosa and Mr. Davidson. I don't need another business meeting. I need you. The tension tightened around them like a coiled spring. Rosa held her breath, amazed by Jake's bravery. Mr. Davidson hesitated, caught off guard by his son's boldness. What do you mean? He asked, his voice low and cautious, the ice around him seeming to crack just a little. The moment hung in the air, an opportunity delicately balanced. Jake stepped forward, the fire in his eyes ignited. I want you to listen to me, to understand what I'm going through. I'm more than just your son. I have a life, a future, and I need you to be a part of it. Now? Rosa felt her heart race, echoing the urgency of the moment. This was fresh ground, the kind of ground where real change could blossom. Would Mr. Davidson finally hear his son? Mr. Davidson opened his mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. His gaze shifted to Rosa, confusion lining his features. You don't just get to call the shots anymore. Jake pressed, the emotion in his voice raw and real. You can't just tell me what I should want or be. I need your love, your support. Rosa took a tentative step back, giving them space while her heart soared for Jake. He was fighting for their family, for the vulnerability they needed to embrace. In that moment, every breath taken felt heavy with possibility. But right on the edge of what could be, the phone rang sharply in Mr. Davidson's pocket, slicing through the moment. With a sigh, he pulled the device out, a shadow passing over his face that Rosa couldn't quite decipher. Excuse me, he muttered, stepping aside to answer. Jake's deflated posture hit Rosa like a punch to the gut. Will he ever change? He whispered, his hope visibly wavering. Rosa wanted to reach out, to reassure him that this fight was worth it. You've taken the first step. Sometimes change happens in inches, not miles. Yet doubt slithered into her own thoughts as she watched Mr. Davidson speaking into the phone, distance already thickening between them. Would he let this new possibility slip away yet again? As the world around them fell back into the mundane rhythm of life, a chilling realization took root. How many chances would they have to embrace this shift? What if this moment was their last? Opportunity, fading like the shadows cast by the setting sun? Would Jake's bravery be enough to keep the door open, or were they already losing something special before it truly began? Rosa stood frozen for a moment, her heart a wild drumbeat in her chest. She watched Mr. Davidson slip away, his face tense as he spoke into the phone. A cold sense of helplessness washed over her. Would he even care enough to listen when he returned? The thought tore through her as Jake's shoulders slumped, his spirit flickering like a candle caught in a draft. Let us just go, he muttered, casting a long glance at the door where his father had exited. What is the point? No, Jake, Rosa said firmly, putting a hand on his arm. This matters. You matter. She gave him a soft smile, though her heart ached for him. I don't want to keep fighting if he's not listening, he replied, frustration spilling over. I've tried, Rosa. I've always tried. Rosa took a breath, absorbing Jake's pain. Maybe this time will be different. Just look at how far you've come already. You stood your ground, and that takes courage. Courage isn't enough if he doesn't care. Jake ran a hand through his hair, the uncertainty lingering in the air. Maybe he does care, just in a way that's twisted by everything he's been through, Rosa suggested. Loss can change people, make them distant. But it doesn't mean they don't love. Sometimes, they just don't know how. Jake's eyes flickered with something new curiosity peeking through the cracks in his wall of frustration. You really think he might care? I do, Rosa replied, feeling the truth of her words soak into her soul. But it has to come from you. You have to show him. At that moment, the door swung open again, and Mr. Davidson stepped back in. His expression was unreadable as he looked from Rosa to Jake, a tension hanging thick between them. Jake, he said finally, his voice steady but taut. I'm sorry about that. There was an emergency with one of our clients. Rosa felt the air still, a moment frozen in place. Jake's gaze met his father's, and she could see the battle in his eyes, wanting to confront but held back by uncertainty. "Dad," Jake began, hesitating over the words. "That client, is it really more important than me? Don't you see that I need Jake?" Mr. Davidson interrupted sharply, then softened. "What do you need?" The room felt electric. Jake had made it past the first wall, but would he press on? Rosa held her breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I need you," he finally said, voice breaking slightly. "I need to know I'm not just a part of the business. I'm your son. I want to share my life with you, my music, my passions." "You have your mother's drive," Mr. Davidson murmured, his eyes glistening with an emotion Rosa couldn't quite read. "You remind me of her. She was more than just a business partner." Jake shot back, his voice steady now with conviction. "I need to feel like I matter to you, too." A long silence blanketed the room. Rosa felt both hopeful and anxious. Would Mr. Davidson take this leap or retreat back into his shell? Finally, Mr. Davidson took a deep breath. "I need to think," he said slowly, his voice seeming to crack under the weight of realization. "You're right. I've lost myself too in this world, all the noise and chaos." He met Jake's eyes with a flicker of something genuine. "I didn't want to lose you too." Rosa's heart swelled. This was at the first sign of a breakthrough they had been hoping for. But just as quickly, uncertainty clouded her mind. What did this change mean for them? Jake's expression shifted from just hope to something deeper possibility. "So we can talk? Really talk?" Mr. Davidson nodded barely above a whisper, his defenses slowly lowering. "Yes, I want to try." With that, the door to that uncharted territory cracked open just a bit more. Rosa's smile widened, but the real work was ahead of them, and there would be many more battles to fight as they moved toward an open conversation. A new worry crept in. Could this fragile moment endure the weight of their past? Would both of them be ready for the truths that still lay ahead? Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting shadows over new paths. In an instant, Rosa knew that this was only the beginning of a longer journey, one filled with obstacles yet to be faced. What lay ahead? Was Jake ready to champion his own heart and dreams against the cold realities of his father's world? Rosa didn't know what to expect next. The air was still thick with tension, and as Mr. Davidson shifted on his feet, she wondered if he understood just how crucial this moment was for Jake. The uncertainty hung like a heavy cloud, and she could see Jake desperately searching for a flicker of connection. The hallway echoed with silence, the kind that felt almost suffocating. Rosa wanted to reach out, to fill the space with words or comfort, but Jake needed to navigate this on his own. He took a deep breath, letting it out slowly as if to release the weight from his chest. "Could we maybe, do this once a week? Just sit down and talk?" he asked, each word wrapped in a thread of vulnerability. "I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to know that you're here." Mr. Davidson's expression hardened momentarily, then softened again. Rosa watched him process the request, watching the emotions flicker in his eyes like a candle flame threatened by the slightest breeze. Every second felt like an eternity. "I can try," he finally said, his voice steadier than before. Jake's shoulders relaxed slightly. "It's a start, isn't it?" "Yeah," Mr. Davidson replied, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. "It is." Rosa felt a rush of warmth in her chest. They were stepping into uncertain territory, but the first few steps felt solid. Jake's brave attempt to reach out had broken the ice, and though she knew there would be challenges ahead, they were no longer standing at the edge, afraid to leap. For the first time, it felt like they were finally on the same team. "Can we try to find time for the music group I've joined to? You might actually like it," Jake added, excitement creeping into his voice. "It's not all about business, Dad. I want to show you who I am outside of this of us." Mr. Davidson nodded slowly, considering. "Okay," he said, as if testing the word on his tongue. "I would like that, son." A smile broke free from Jake, lighting up his face. It was a hesitant smile, but it was genuine and full of hope. "Then I'll bring my guitar next week. We can start right there." The tentative joy between them stirred something in the room. Rosa felt triumph bubbling through her veins, and in that moment, she was overwhelmed by the beauty of connection, slow, messy, yet enough to shift the tides as they continued to talk. A plan blossomed between them. Meetings, music, understanding. It was all laid out like a map leading them toward a future they had long dreamed of. Even as the shadows outside deepened, Rosa's heart felt lighter, But suddenly, a sudden phone buzz sliced through the moment, pulling Mr. Davidson back to reality. He glanced down at the device, the light from the screen reflecting apprehension on his features. "I have to take this," he said, quickly standing. Jake's smile faltered. "Dad?" "Wait," but Mr. Davidson was already at the door, already slipping through to the chaos outside. The peaceful atmosphere shattered in an instant, leaving Jake to process the abrupt departure. "Why did I think it would actually stay good for long?" Jake muttered, his optimistic glow dimming. Rosa reached for him, her heart aching at the setback. "Hey, that phone call doesn't take away from what you just did. You stood up for yourself. That's huge, Jake." He exhaled sharply, the frustration boiling just beneath the surface. "But it doesn't mean anything if he runs back to work the moment he's needed," he said, his voice tight. "Or maybe it just means he is still trying to navigate this new part of his life too," she replied softly. "This isn't the end. It's just another bump in the road. We still have each other, right?" He nodded slowly, though his expression remained pensive. The promise of hope lingered, but doubt always seemed to linger not far behind. As the minutes ticked by, and Mr. Davidson remained absent, questions bubbled up. Would the structure they were trying to build withstand the pressures of their past? Rosa could feel the weight of those possibilities. She glanced toward the door, wishing the world outside would ease long enough for them to find their way. Something simmered beneath her own layers of concern. She could feel that the story was far from over. A new chapter lay ahead, waiting to unfold. What would it take for them to break through the barriers still keeping them apart? Would Jake's heart withstand another setback? Or would this newfound connection be strong enough to survive the storms of their history? Rosa shifted her weight, her heart still thumping in the void left by Mr. Davidson's sudden departure. Jake's expression mixed confusion with anger. The remnants of their hopeful conversation lingered in the air like a distant echo. She wished she could reach into his mind and smooth away the wrinkled thoughts that were spiraling in frustration. "Let us do something, Jake. Let us not just sit here," she suggested, her urgency creeping into her tone. Jake dragged his fingers through his hair, letting out a frustrated sigh. "What do you want to do? Watch paint dry? Maybe we could go for a walk. Get some fresh air?" She didn't want to let the moment sink too deep. They had come so far. There was a pause as he weighed her suggestion. Finally, he nodded, the smallest flicker of determination back in his eyes. "Yeah, all right." They stepped out into the cool evening, leaving the echoes of the conversation behind them. The air felt different outside, a contrast to the pent-up emotions within the walls. As they walked along the quiet path lined with autumn leaves, the faint sounds of laughter and music floated from nearby homes. Rosa glanced sideways at Jake. He still looked troubled, his lips pressed together as if he held back more than just words. "You know," she began, breaking the silence that threatened to envelop them again, "your dad wasn't wrong to leave. It's just a tough balance he has to strike right now. It doesn't mean he doesn't care." Jake shot her a sharp look. "How can you defend him? He makes time for work, but never for me." His words struck like a match to kindling. "I'm not defending him, Jake. I just think we should give him a chance. You took that step today. It was brave," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, handing him a glimmer of hope. "But what if he doesn't hold up his end? What if this was just another moment? What if he forgets next week?" He craved reassurance, but uncertainty tangled in the words that spilled from his mouth. Rosa paused, the shadows of doubt creeping closer. "It's a risk," she admitted. "But what's worse? Taking the risk and being disappointed, or never trying at all?" Jake stopped walking, planting his feet firmly on the ground, just a few paces ahead of her. His shoulders seemed to shrug off the heaviness, his face releasing some tension as he considered her words. "Fine, I'll give him another shot. But if he flakes out on me again," he let the sentence hang in the air, leaving it unfinished yet charged with possibility. "Then we'll deal with that together," she said softly. They stood for a moment where the street lamp flickered, illuminating the space between them. Hope wove itself through the air like shimmering threads, each breath pulling them closer to an unspoken agreement. "I guess I should worry less and just let things unfold," Jake finally stated, half sarcastic but with a hint of something softer, more genuine. "Yeah, that's a start," Rosa replied, unable to suppress her smile. "And bring your guitar next week. Even if it's just you strumming a few notes alone, it'll be something." With a flicker of mischief in his eyes, Jake laughed. What if I sing something awful? Then we'll both laugh at it. Seriously, it'll be fun, Rosa nudged playfully. As they turned toward home, the air between them felt lighter, filled with some of the hope that had initially sparked in the hallway. But the lingering question hovered. Could they withstand the pressure of expectations? Would Mr. Davidson's absence loom over them? Or would he show up, ready to embrace the fragile connection they were trying to forge? And there it was, just on the horizon. The moment of truth awaited them, full of possibility but shrouded in uncertainty. Jake felt a shudder of exhilaration. What would next week hold? Would he be ready for whatever came next? As the week drifted past, anticipation thrummed in Jake's chest like an unplayed note on his guitar. Each day felt like a countdown to the moment of truth. Could his dad pull through this time? He kept replaying their brief conversation in his mind, the flicker of hope that lit up a dim path ahead. With every sunset, the same question echoed louder. Would he show up? The weekend arrived, stretching out before him like an unwritten song. Rosa had suggested honing her own skills with the guitar, while Jake practiced too. So there they were, sprawled on the grass in the park, surrounded by vibrant autumn hues. The leaves danced to the gentle breeze, almost inviting him in. Rosa was beside him, her fingers expertly navigating the strings as she strummed a light melody. See, it's not that hard, she laughed, handing him the guitar. Now you try. Jake hesitated, the instrument feeling foreign in his hands. What if it sounds awful? Then we'll make it a duet. Awful harmonies are the best kind, she teased, nudging him to relax. He took a deep breath, strumming the strings as if testing the water. The sound that filled the air was shaky but undeniably real, his fingers unsure but determined. That's it. Let it flow. No one's judging you. Her voice wrapped around him like a warm blanket. He found himself smiling, caught up in the moment. Suddenly, the pressure of expectations faded away, replaced by the simple joy of creating something tangible. Just as he began to get lost in the rhythm, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him abruptly back to reality. It was a message from his dad. His heart raced, emotions clashing like thunder in a summer storm. He glanced at Rosa, who returned his gaze, filled with encouragement. It's from Dad, he murmured, fingers trembling over the screen. Read it. Whatever it says, you can handle it. Jake took a breath and opened the message. Jake, I know I've messed up before. I'm trying to make things right. Can we meet this evening? The words pulled him into a whirlwind of confusion. Awareness washed over him, a mix of hope and anxiety, mingling in his stomach like a tangled-up cord. He wants to meet. That's good, right? Rosa's face lit up. Yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure. Doubt hung heavily in the air, the unshakable fear of disappointment clawing at him. Jake, she began, her tone softening. You've been waiting for this moment. Just remember, whatever happens, you're not alone. He nodded, feeling grateful for her presence. I just don't know what to expect. Neither do I, but that's okay. We can face whatever comes together, she encouraged. Taking a deep breath, he stared up at the blue sky, trying to quell the rising tide of uncertainty. Thanks, Rosa. I really mean it. I don't think I'd have the courage to face him without you. Just keep the guitar handy. It always helps to channel emotions into something. She winked. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jake felt a shudder of exhilaration mixed with fear. If his father truly wanted to change, could he believe it? The clock ticked away, counting down to their meeting. Would today really be the day when hope blossomed anew? Or would it be another heavy burden to carry? And as Jake prepared to leave, he caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar car pulling into the parking lot across the street. Was it him? The moment felt charged with more possibilities than he could comprehend. Would the skies open up to a bright new beginning, or would the clouds that hung low remain? Jake stepped out of his house, heart pounding like a drummer in a parade. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows and painting the sky in strokes of gold and crimson. Today was pivotal. He could feel it in his bones. Would his father embrace this chance? Would Mr. Davidson take a step towards understanding? He arrived at the meeting spot, a cozy cafe, just off the main road. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, mingling with the distant sounds of laughter and chatter. Jake's nerves danced like the flickering shadows cast by the hanging lights. Would tonight change everything, Or would he find himself crumpled again beneath the weight of disappointment? The door chimed as he stepped inside, eyes searching for the figure he hoped would be waiting. And there he was. Mr. Davidson sat at a table in the corner, his head bent, fiddling with his phone much like Jake had seen him do in the past. An uneasy knot twisted in Jake's stomach. Taking a deep breath, he approached, heart racing. "Dad," he greeted, voice steady but soft, like a gentle wave rolling onto shore. Mr. Davidson looked up, surprise flickering across his face, a window into his internal conflict. "Jake," he acknowledged, voice gruff, though there was a tinge of warmth. "Thanks for coming." Jake slid into the chair opposite him, feeling the weight of years press between them. "You said you wanted to talk," he prompted, eyes locking onto his dad's. "What's on your mind?" Mr. Davidson sighed, his shoulders dropping in surrender. "I've been thinking about what you said, about me being more present. I'm not an easy person to change." The words lingered in the air, hesitant but real, as if each syllable held the promise of something hopeful. "I know." Jake felt an involuntary tremor in his fingers, ready to reach across and bridge the distance. "But you don't have to change everything overnight. Just start with the small stuff. Like talking." A smile, hesitant yet genuine, crept onto Mr. Davidson's face. "I've relied so much on the business. It's how I learned to cope after losing your mother. I thought I was doing what was best for us. I wanted you to have everything." Jake's heart ached at the raw honesty. "I get that, but you being around means more than the things money can buy. Don't you see? I need your support. I need you to care about my music, my life." "Your music," Mr. Davidson echoed, nodding. "I want to hear it. I know I should have come to your last performance." "It wasn't a huge deal," Jake replied, but his voice trembled slightly. "But it would have meant something if you were there. That's what I'm talking about. Just show up." Silence enveloped them a moment as Mr. Davidson wrestled with a myriad of emotions. The facade of the dominant businessman he had built seemed to crack, revealing the vulnerable man beneath. "You're right. How could I have missed it?" A wave of relief washed over Jake. Together, they could rebuild the connection that had warped under the weight of expectations and loss. "Let us make plans," he offered boldly. "We could." "Jake," Mr. Davidson interjected, the gravity of the moment gathering him. "I'm not promising to be perfect overnight. I need time to adjust, and, honestly, so do you. But I promise. I'll try." Relief surged through Jake as hope blossomed anew. "That's all I'm asking, Dad. Just try. If we talk more, I bet we can start to understand one another." Mr. Davidson smiled now, the corners of his mouth lifting like the sun breaking through clouds. "Okay, let us set up a regular schedule. I'll be there for your next performance. I want to support you, really support you." Jake nodded, heart racing, exhilaration bubbling up inside him. "And I'll bring my guitar next time. We can even play together." Laughter erupted spontaneously, an infectious sound that cleared out the heavy gloom that had settled between them for far too long. Just then, Rosa entered the cafe, a vibrant flower in the midst of their tentative blossoming connection. She spotted Jake and Mr. Davidson, her eyes lighting up. A flood of warmth swept over Jake. "Hey, how's it going?" she greeted, settling into the space beside Jake. He felt a rush of gratitude at her presence, a reminder of the support that surrounded him. "It's going great," he replied, grinning from ear to ear. As Mr. Davidson shared a smile with Rosa, Jake felt a sense of promise build. Perhaps together, they could nurture the families they had lost and turn it into something beautiful, a tapestry stitched bright with understanding and hope. That evening, as they left the cafe, under the canvas of a slowly darkening sky, Jake looked up at his father, who felt more like a friend than a distant figure. "So what's the plan for next week?" Mr. Davidson chuckled. "Next week, I'll be there when you strum your first chord. And believe me, I'll bring earplugs." Laughter erupted again, fueling Jake's heart with warmth. Knowing this was yet another step forward as they walked into the fading light. Words unspoken lingered, promising an exciting journey ahead. Perhaps the world would never fully understand them, but for the first time, it didn't matter. What mattered was their birth of a new beginning, rich with renewed hope. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these precious messages. Comment below on your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. And make sure to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this transformation unfold. Don't wait, not even one more second. Show your support and help us brighten more lives.